are many times in the real world when you need to convert from one unit of measurement to another, and knowing the different units of measurement and ways to change one unit to another can help you understand the quantities they describe. So to convert, which means to change, from one unit to another, you need to use the relationship between the units. And that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at length and capacity, and then mass and weight. So first let's look at length. Now the customary units of length in the United States are inches, feet, yards, and miles. And some of these numbers may seem a little abstract or difficult to remember, but it's one of those things that we just have to put to memory. And we have to understand that there are 12 inches in 1 foot and 3 feet in a yard, or like a yardstick. And if there are 3 feet in a yard, then that means there's 36 inches in a yardstick. And then there are 1,760 yards in a mile. And if there are 3 feet in a yardstick, then that means that there are 5,280 feet in a mile. So let's see if we can take some of these units and convert some of them. So the first one asks me that if I have 3 yards, how many feet is that? Well, by looking at my chart, I know that in 1 yard, I have 3 feet. So if I had 2 yardsticks, that would be 6 feet, and 3 yardsticks would be 9 feet. Or I could just simply multiply 3 times 3 and get 9. The next one asks me how many inches would be in 4 feet. Well, again, by looking at my chart, I see that 1 foot is 12 inches, 2 feet would be 24 inches, 3 feet would be 36 inches, so 4 feet would be 48 inches. Or I could multiply 4 times 12 and get 48. And then my next one, 2 miles equals how many feet? Well, again, by looking at my chart, I see that 1 mile is 5,280 feet. So if I doubled that, 2 miles would be 10,560 feet. Now looking at my next chart, I'm looking at the metric length. And I see that 1 kilometer equals 1,000 meters. 1 meter is 100 centimeters. And 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters. Now the metric system is very simple because it's all based around units of tens. So I can see that 10 millimeters is a centimeter, and if I multiplied that by 10 and got 100 centimeters, that would be a meter. And then if I multiplied my 100 times 10, I would have 1,000 meters would equal a kilometer. So if that's the case, let's work some of these. And I see that 50 centimeters equals how many millimeters? Well, 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters. So if I had 50 of those, then I would have 500. Or 50 times 10. The next one, 2 meters equals how many centimeters? Well, by looking at my chart, I see that 1 meter is 100 centimeters. So if I double that, 2 meters would be 200 centimeters. And my next question says 3 kilometers equals how many meters? Well, my chart says that 1 kilometer equals 1,000 meters. 2 kilometers would be 2,000 meters, so 3 kilometers would be 3,000 meters. My next units of measurement that I'm going to look at are capacity. And I see in my chart, if I'm looking at the metric, I have 1 liter, like a liter bottle, is 1,000 milliliters. And in the customary, I have 1 gallon is 4 quarts. And that would also be equivalent to 128 fluid ounces. 1 quart is 2 pints, 1 pint is 2 cups, and 1 cup equals 8 fluid ounces. Now they got the 128 up here, by taking my 16 cups, which are there are 16 cups in a gallon, and I had 16 times 8. And that's where we would have gotten my 128. Now, this little diagram down here is called Mr. Gallon Man. And it's a good visual for children. I see that Mr. Gallon Man is in the middle, and his arms would represent the quarts. Arms and legs would represent the quarts, and there are 4 quarts in a gallon. And then off of each quart, I have 2 pints, and then off of each pint, I have 2 cups. So I would have 1 quart equals 2 pints, or 1 quart equals 4 cups. So let's see if we can use these charts to convert some units of measurement. My first one says that 2 liters equals how many milliliters? Well, if I look at my chart above, 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters, so if I had 2 liters, that would equal 2,000 milliliters. 1 gallon equals how many cups? Well, again, 1 gallon man. And how many cups, if I counted all of these around the edges, there would be 16. So there are 16 cups in a gallon. Now the next one, 3 quarts is how many pints? Well, I want to talk about this quart, and this quart. So if I had 3 quarts, how many pints would that be? Well, this quart has 2 pints, this quart has 2 pints, and this quart has 2 pints. That's 2, 4, 6. So I have 6 pints, or 3 times 2 is 6. Now 2 pints equals how many cups? Well, here's a pint, and here's a pint. This pint has 2 cups, and this pint has 2 cups. So 2 and 2 is 4, or 2 times 2 is 4. And finally, we're going to look at mass and weight. In our metric system, 1 kilogram is equivalent to 1,000 grams, and 1 gram is equal to 1,000 milligrams. Again, real simple, it's all based on the units of 10. So let's do some converting with our metric. 5 kilograms equals how many grams? Well, according to my chart, 1 kilogram is 1,000 grams, so 5 kilograms would be 5 times 1,000, which would give me 5,000 grams. And then my next question says 3 grams equals how many milligrams? Well, 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams, so 3 times 1,000 would be 3,000 milligrams. And moving to our customary units, I'm looking at 1 ton equals 2,000 pounds. And 1 pound equals 16 ounces. So if that's the case, then 3 tons is how many pounds? Well, 1 ton is 2,000. 2 tons would be 4,000. So 3 tons would be 6,000. Or I could multiply 2,000 times 3, and I'm still going to get 6,000. And then my final question, 2 pounds equals how many ounces? Well, according to my chart, 1 pound is 16 ounces. So if I doubled that, 2 times 16 would be 32 ounces.